Welcome to Hanging Out with Robert, that's me. This video contains things that I encounter throughout the day. If for some reason I complete a task and you would like to see the details, you can click on the link in the description area below. This video also contains tips and tricks that I learned throughout the years. I plan on leaving this video accessible for about 30 days. After that, you can view it through my Patreon account. Thank you very much for watching. Kicking off the morning, gonna try to finish up with this S60R this morning. Got a few things to do, door trim, a little bit of stuff, tidying up the engine bay and see what else we could run across. Just put this body brace in. Next we're gonna put these timing belt covers on. I guess we should have put the timing belt covers on before we put that brace on. This S60R has a leak detection pump error message. This is the part here, and this is the part in the package. Let me go ahead and take it out of the package. And if you come under the car, up near the exhaust, you see this heat shield over here on the driver's side. I think it's only held in by these two 10 millimeters. That leak detection pump is right there. It appears to be possibly easy to reach and get to. So I'm gonna pull this down, this out, maneuver this down and out. I think it's tucked up in there, and see if I could access that leak detection pump easily. That heat shield was a little difficult to get out because it bumped into the exhaust. So you take the exhaust hanger loose over here, exhaust hanger loose over there, pry the exhaust down, and now you can see the leak detection pump is very accessible there. Now this pump has a couple of hoses connect to it. Sometimes the hoses break. It's got a funny plug in there, and it seems like it has a little bracket that it attaches to. You can try to detach it from this bracket. I pulled this rubber grommet bracket assembly holder off toward the passenger side, and then when it was loose, I pulled it off of the assembly toward the driver's side. Now I got three, it looks like T20 or T25 screws holding that bracket on the bottom. I'm gonna take those off to get those out of the way. Then I'm gonna unplug that there, undo that hose assembly there. Then there's a hose on the top of it that I have to access and detach, and then I'll pull it down and replace it. That's how that was up in there. Had two Oaklear clamps on there. It's got enough hose that you could put regular clamps on there. That's what probably we're going to go back on with. So it is, yeah, a 15-minute job, maybe 30 at the most. These three screws in the bottom of this pump, try not to drop any of those screws. I dropped one. It landed on this bracket here. Then when I went to grab it, it fell down into the suspension somewhere in abyss. I've been fishing with a magnet, can't find it, so that's probably gone. Will two screws hold it? Absolutely. So there's a screw down in there somewhere. Got all that stuff back together. Got the heat shield tucked back up under there. Secure. All done. Just need to clear the coat. Something about habit when you're crawling on the ground and your car's on the lift. Sad situation. So we found this hose here hanging down. I was trying to figure out what it goes to. This bracket here is there, so we lifted the car up and we see this track of maybe some kind of guard that should be here that this cable should be under. Followed that up and looked around and found the vacuum hose here. So this is probably the other end of that vacuum busted off there. So we got, I don't know, 4 feet of line missing. And I wonder if it came around this side at one time. Goes up to the EVAP system. Yep, comes in this clip right here and on back there. See if we get this fixed. For our situation here, I am going to use some of these things that holds the wheel skirts in on the 850s. Put a slot in the side of them on the edge big enough where I can put a zip tie through them. Put a vacuum tube there. Put those nuts up there, run zip ties through them, and that should hold that up out of the way until we get the proper piece that goes under there and holds that together. This is what we did with this. 6mm vacuum line was perfect for that. Squeeze them on that nylon tube. Put these little bolt heads up there and got this back in play, all connected. Now I'm going to get this wheel skirt stuff together here and get ready to put these tires on. These things hold the bumpers close to the body, and you see this here is adjusted by that screw. You don't have to take none of the skirt loose. I'm going to show you the one on the other side that's broken. P2 parts. See, the whole edge of this one is broken. So you can find one out of the salvage yard, just unscrew that all the way, and that thing will just slide and clip right out of this plastic piece here, and bring it in here and put it on that. Probably got to pull the bumper to get this in and out of here. I believe we are done with this S60R for now. It's got a couple of pieces of trim that need to be replaced. Timing belt cover, and we got to jump it. For some reason the battery drained yesterday. So, ready? Yeah, go ahead, fire it up and roll in the next one. Oh, I forgot we jacked that door trim up, seal.
No juice.
Still nothing?
No.
Is this thing dead?
Deader than a doornail.
I'm trying to see if my... It's still dead?
Yeah. You hook it up to a battery tender?
Well, I don't know why it would jump at 1 minute and the next minute it wouldn't. I'm trying to see what my charge power is on it. Next up, we're going to manual swap this yellow T-5R sedan. There's also a 850R there, tan interior, daily driver. And look what we got here. Nope, it's not an S70 T5 like the wheels say. It's an 850 in a manual. On and popping. It's what we call a donor car if it didn't run so good. It runs so good, we don't want to strip it out for a donor car. And it's got the tow hook cover on there. Look at there. This car is complete. Complete. Let me get this in here and get this up on the lift. Before we get too deep into this yellow one, let's go ahead and see all the things we need to get done to it. Manual swap. Replace all 4 axle boots. Oh, install a Quaife LSD. Forgot about that. Shifter cable, bushings replacement, skateboard bearings, a rear main seal, throw out bearing, pilot bearing and snap ring. I don't think I've ever done that because I don't know if this transmission reaches the throw out bearing and snap ring, but we'll see what happens. Transmission, axle seals, input shaft seals, throttle cable, replace rubber damper for the shifter cables. Not sure if I know what that is. Replace white shift ball seat. Replace the O-ring below it. I don't think I'm gonna do that. Every time I've tried to do that, the thing has broken. So we'll see what goes there. Replace the EGR gasket. Replace the PCV system. Replace the firewall junction. Replace the heater core and hoses. Coolant reservoir and cap and hoses. Lower radiator hose. Upper engine torque mount. Antenna mast. Dash pad. Dash wood trim. I don't think I could get that dash wood trim off of these 850s, but we'll see what happens. Replace a serpentine belt, water pump, seat belt release buttons, fender marker lights, stock fog lights, and replace the amplifier and bracket. So that's the punch list for this T-5R. Here it is, folks, the yellow T-5R. Auto now, but the goal is to swap it to a manual. Then we got some interior stuff to do. It's already got the R seats, but it's got some issues with dash being busted and cracked, and we're going to try to correct that as well. Needs a dash pad, hoses, just all kinds of stuff. So we're going to tear this thing pretty deep. It's probably going to take 2-3 days to get this stuff taken care of. So without further ado, let's get started. And I think we're going to support the engine in the car with an engine brace and drop the subframe out from under it and pull the transmission out and install the manual stuff that way. I didn't see a cherry picker, so I don't think we're going to pick it up with cherry picker, and I don't think we're going to pull the engine out, so we're just going to do it that way. This mount here is destroyed, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that. This one on the firewall is not destroyed, so I'm going to leave that. But let me go ahead and start tearing out the airbox and battery and stuff like that. Weird thing number one, the throttle body cable clip is missing and somebody got a zip tie. That's a good idea, but it should have the clip there. We got fender skirts loose, rivets loose, and the little nuts are not tight, so I'm gonna secure that. Also, the brake hoses are starting to crack. Those need to be replaced. On that note, we're going to take a lunch break and take a ride in this Rolls Royce. Good to be the king. Rolls Royce. Silver Shadow 2. This is old school luxury here. Oh yes. Door opens right up. Look at that woodwork. The woodwork is real. I think this vehicle has 78,000 miles or something like that. Look at those controls. Fires right up, purrs like a kitten. I think this headliner's wool. And this dash is covered with leather. Yes, indeed. Them hinges on them doors. Doors ain't going nowhere. Back from lunch. About to get back on this ride. On and popping. I got the wheels off. I got the fan out. I got part of the rip kit out. Digging down here toward the transmission. I'm going to go ahead and drain the coolant because we got coolant things to do, which include the timing belt. And keep on trucking. Drop this transmission fluid as well. That is some nasty looking transmission fluid. You guys have got to replace this stuff. Unless you're going to do a manual swap. It is 3:51. We're going to do an update. We got the control arms loose from the subframe. We got the sway bar end links loose from the anti-sway bar. So we're going to drop the subframe and leave the anti-sway bar with the subframe. The steering rack is staying with the car. And the struts and all this stuff is staying with the car. We got the steering rack loose, so we got to go up on top of the car and support the engine from up top. And we got all this stuff loose on this side. We got the power steering loose. This power steering will stay with the bracket that's going with the steering rack, so that'll stay. We got this mount loose from up here. We got this harness loose from here. And I don't think there's anything else attached to the subframe other than this. So we need to get this loose, or it could actually stay with the subframe, but we have to take these vacuum lines loose. So you got this vacuum line here, and you got this one that somebody's got routed the wrong way going back there. This line is torn here, so that needs to be replaced. And up here is on the purge valve. So let's disconnect this, and then we can work on getting this subframe dropped. We're going to take a few bolts out. We already got these bolts out here. We're going to take 2 out the subframe after we get the engine supported, and then take 2 and drop them really low, and then lower the car, and then drop the subframe. I just noticed that these 2 lines are attached here off of this unit, so I'm just going to disconnect them there and cut them loose here and keep the canister with the subframe. We have the engine support installed, and now I'm gonna go down and pull that mount off the front of the engine under the harmonic balancer and take the subframe bolts out and drop the subframe on the ground and push it back out of the way. Subframe is on the floor. This mount here looks very good. I wonder if somebody probably replaced that at one time. These oil cooler lines are newish, but we're going to pull them so we don't have problems with them in the future. And it's already sweating. Got some oil on the bottom of that. And got some weird 10mm head bolts on the carrier. So we come back here, just looking around, seeing what's going on. Everything looks very good. Barely. Kind of like rust-free. And somebody put some kind of hose on that rollover valve, which is fine. Fuel filter looks like it's been replaced. The big washers are missing from behind these nuts right here. Supposed to be big washers behind there. Got Coney rear shocks. The ABS wires are deteriorating. It's normally not a problem until they break. And the bump stops are totally gone on this. I don't know if the parking brake works. I got to go set them and see if they work, because if not, they're going to need to be repaired for manual swap stuff. And this brake line is not in its clip right over here. So everything looks pretty good under here. All in all, it's got a stock exhaust. And let's keep rocking and rolling. Since I'm down here, I'm going to take all these transmission bolts loose and probably this mount off of here as well. Since it's a 95, it has that speed sensor plug there. It looks like somebody's been messing with it. It's kind of taken loose there, but we're going to lose that with the manual probably. These seals looks like they're pretty new, but somebody put them in backwards. I think I've ever seen that before. Maybe that's why they're leaking, because there's fluid all over this area here. We're going to do a rear main seal when we have it down. So let me go ahead and take this mount loose and take these transmission bolts loose while I'm down here. We got all the bolts loose on the bottom of the transmission. We got that mount loose there. We're gonna go ahead and unplug this here. And I noticed all of the brake caliper bolts are missing their dust covers. Look like we got a little bit of wear on this rotor, but it's not bad. I believe all the bolts are out of this transmission. And the rear bracket and mount has a couple of bolts in it. On the top side of the mount, it's loose from the steering rack. So this transmission should be ready to come out. I gotta raise the car up and take this lower transmission line loose, and then I'm gonna go get my transmission jack and put it under there. Then I'm gonna lower this engine down on this side, and I should be ready to pull this transmission out. It's like 5:20 right now, so we'll see how long it takes. Almost forgot. I need to go in here and take my torque converter bolts out before I unplug that transmission. Had a new way of getting these torque converter bolts out. I line it up. I take my fuel 3/8 ratchet. I put my T-50 on there. I turn it on, and then I plug it into that screw, and it jerks it and pulls it right out. Get all 6 of them out pretty quick. It was actually 5:34, my last clip, when I said I just was ready to drop that transmission. It is 6:34 now, so it took me an hour to unplug that transmission. Trying not to destroy anything. So we're going to open up this boot on the steering rack, make sure there's no fluid in there, because if it's got a leak in the steering rack, we're going to replace that. I'm going to knock this flex plate off of here, replace this rear main seal. There's a lot of stuff I'm going to do while I got all this access. I'm going to replace this firewall junction, these heater hoses, anything that needs to be replaced while this is taken apart is going to be done. Doing it while we're in here. Let me pop this flex plate off. That's all the fluid I leaked on the ground, man. That's good. That's actually dripped out of the radiator while I was waiting to drop the transmission. So I did really good on that. This steering rack is just moist. No fluid poured out of this boot, so we're gonna leave the steering rack alone. A lot of people would love to have a steering rack that is that dry. So we're gonna keep moving right along. We got the flex plate off. Rear main seal looks strange, like it's maybe wasn't set in all the way, or it's walking out or something. I guess this might be the felt. Oh, it's the felt came off of it. All right, so that's the felt came loose, but it is leaking, so we're gonna replace it. Keep on moving. Flywheel has surface rust on it. I'm gonna hit it with that wire wheel. It does not have any groove in it from a previous clutch wear, so we should be good to go. So let me go ahead and clean it up with this wire wheel. If that don't work, we'll find some Scotch-Brite pad or something to sand this surface rust off of here. got this flywheel pretty much cleaned up. However, we see these cracks in it where the last clutch was riding. It doesn't really feel like it's got a groove in it. Just minute, barely. But we're gonna get an opinion on whether we should use this with these cracks. It's only where that last clutch was. Like they were burning the clutch, overheating this metal, causing it to crack. Maybe turning it'll cure that. We'll find out. Probably the last task of today is to install the rear main seal. Got my rear main seal tool. Got my Volvo rear main seal made in Turkey. And we're going to go ahead and install that. We got the rear main seal installed. It is recessed properly. Should not be a problem having any leaks or anything like that on it. So we should be good to go. Next up, dealing with some coolant lines. We removed the heater hose from the side of the block. Getting ready to remove this other heater hose from the crossover pipe. It's the one that goes in the bottom of the firewall junction. And as you can see, I already removed the turbo supply line. Caught that stuff in the drain container. A little bit of it splashed on the floor, but I'm trying to break this heater hose loose. Up there it is. And draining it in the container. I'm glad I picked up some oil eater pads to clean up my mess a little bit, so that's absorbing that coolant. And we getting it all cleaned up, and there are the two, looks like original heater hoses from the vehicle. We got brand new Volvo OEM heater hoses going in, and I'm gonna replace that firewall junction, but that's all for today. So we're going to shut this down for tonight. Thank you very much for watching, and look forward to some more progress on this thing tomorrow. Woo woo. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.